Yeah, this is a role reasoning kind of question, right? We're trying to describe exactly why the author discusses cognitive framework on line 58. If you go down there, that forms an early negative impression that forms a cognitive framework for jurors. So this was when the author was talking about the limitations, right? You might have negative consequences if you can't spin it well enough. Okay, so why did the author discuss cognitive framework? To discuss the limitation. That's the answer in short, right? And answer choice A says, it'll indicate that at least some information mentioned early in a trial can influence the way jurors evaluate information presented later in the trial. I actually didn't like this answer the first time I read it because it wasn't, any guess? Felt like it was too neutral. I felt like cognitive framework was mentioned to specifically talk about cases when you cannot spin it. Taylor?
No, I got it. I agree.
Oh, okay. So I was kind of, you just had a big smile on your face, so I couldn't figure out what you were thinking.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, well, anyway. So I thought I didn't think it was negative enough, so I left it open. I mean, it's not wrong. Clearly it's not wrong. It's the right answer. But I didn't think it was the best answer. What answers were we debating?
A and C.
C and E.
D.
D. Okay. C. Suggest that damaging evidence, good start, that is framed positively early in the trial will have a greater impact than damaging evidence presented later in the trial. The issue was that negative evidence framed positively early could have a negative impact, right? I think this will have a greater impact than damaging evidence presented later in the trial. It depends. It really depends on whether that negative information can be spun or not spun. So I feel like this is kind of a maybe. I mean, I think it will have a greater impact. The question is, should you do it or not do it? And this is kind of missing that limitation point. A D?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Theorize that stealing thunder is best done as early as possible in a case. Maybe not. Maybe you shouldn't steal thunder as early as possible if it can't be spun.
Yeah.
If it's really bad.
I thought that A was wrong because it said at least some information, and because it said that stealing thunder may create a negative impression. So I thought that it didn't necessarily mean that there had to be at least some. No?
Oh, I think it doesn't mean in every case or every trial. When I read at least some, I just took that to mean in some cases you may have some information that. Well, the thing is, this isn't even talking about negative. That's the thing about this answer, is it's neutral. Indicate that at least some information mentioned early in the trial can influence the way jurors evaluate information presented later in the trial. The cognitive framework was referring to the fact that how you're desperate to create meaning, right?
Yeah.
Before the trial gets going, and this cognitive framework does suggest that there is at least some information that may frame the way you see the trial.
Okay.
And in fact, now that we're talking about it, I think a neutral answer is better than a negative one. I was expecting a negative one because this was a negative part of the passage, but the cognitive framework would refer to both negative and positive information. So, all right, questions on that? Sound good? Okay, let's keep going.